Welcome to the deep dive. So, we're staring down this really significant White House deadline, just days away, apparently.
That's right. Getting close.
And the message seems, well, pretty unambiguous. Agree to these new trade deals, or you're looking at sharply higher tariffs.
Exactly. No room for doubt there.
So today, our mission, our deep dive, is really to unpack what this could all mean. The potential economic fallout, the geopolitical side of things.
Hmm?
We're drawing on some serious analysis here, JP Morgan Chase Institute, Goldman Sachs, and looking at global players like BRICS, too.
And I think the key question, really the one we want to get to the bottom of for you, is what does this actually mean on the ground?
Right.
For American businesses, for you as a consumer, and, well, how does it change the whole shape of global trade?
Okay, so let's start there. Tariffs are the tool, but what's the immediate effect here at home? Let's focus on the U.S. economy first.
Makes sense.
What really jumps out from sources like the JP Morgan Chase Institute is that these tariffs, they're not just some abstract cost for foreign companies.
Wow, no.
They're potentially going to pull, a staggering $82.3 billion directly from U.S. employers?
Yeah, $82.3 billion. It's a huge figure. And specifically hitting those mid-sized businesses.
Apparent.
The revenues between $10 million and $1 billion.
Exactly those. Which, honestly, that kind of challenges the whole idea that the cost is absorbed somewhere else, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It flips that common assumption. It means American businesses are the ones, feeling that direct financial hit.
So what happens then if businesses face these costs?
Well, they have tough choices, right?
Yeah.
Essentially three options. One, raise prices, which means inflation for you, the consumer.
Okay.
Two, they could cut jobs, unfortunately, layoffs. Or three, they just have to swallow it, accept lower profits.
And are we seeing which way they might lean?
Goldman Sachs, for instance, they forecast that U.S. companies are likely to pass on, maybe 60%. Roughly 60% of those tariff costs directly to consumers.
Wow, 60%.
Yeah, it's a big pass-through. And you can bet the Federal Reserve is watching that inflation number very carefully before they make any moves on interest rates.
Okay, 60%. That really makes you think about who's actually paying for these policies in the end.
Exactly.
So the goal might be protecting domestic industry, but what our deep dive is showing, based on these sources, is that the cost often seems to land squarely on, American businesses and consumers.
Right. It's a critical point, often missed in the broader debate.
But it's not just domestic, is it? These sort of go-it-alone moves by the U.S.,
Yeah.
they must be causing ripples globally, shaking up trade flows, investment.
Oh, absolutely. And that raises some really important questions about, global alliances, how countries trade with each other.
Like the BRICS group.
Precisely. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plus the newer members like Iran, UAE, they've been quite vocal.
Condemning the tariffs.
Yeah, condemning this independent use of tariffs. They argue it distorts trade, violates international norms. And what's really striking
Yeah.
is the U.S. has apparently even threatened an additional 10% tariff on any country, aligning with what it calls anti-American policies of BRICS.
Wow, that's strong language. It sounds like it could really escalate.
It's risky rhetoric, definitely. Combine that with the actual tariffs, and you really do risk sparking a much wider trade conflict, retaliation, counter-retaliation. It just stifles everything.
A global trade war, basically. A game of chicken with huge stakes. Okay, so with all this disruption, this volatility, could anyone actually maybe benefit? Almost accidentally.
It's an interesting question. Potentially, yes. Some analyses suggest countries like, say, India could possibly benefit
How so?
from a kind of tariff-driven shift. Companies actively looking to diversify their supply chains move away from places facing high tariffs.
Makes sense. Diversification.
Right. Moody's ratings, for example, suggest India might face fewer direct U.S. tariff headwinds compared to some neighbors in Asia-Pacific, so maybe it attracts more investment. It has a big domestic market, growing manufacturing.
But it's not guaranteed.
No, far from it. Even for potential winners, it's slow, it's complex. And the overall uncertainty hanging over global trade, that's definitely hurting investment decisions everywhere.
And what about countries that did benefit from earlier shifts,
Right.
like Vietnam?
Yeah, exactly. Export-heavy places like Vietnam, Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
They previously gained when supply chains shifted out of China. But now they can see their cost advantages eroded by these new tariffs too. It's a constantly shifting landscape.
So let's try to wrap this up. What does it all mean for you listening? Our deep dive seems to highlight this critical tension. Tariffs are often meant to protect home industries, but the sources we've looked at show the costs, they frequently hit American businesses and consumers. higher prices, maybe slower
Accurate.
economic activity.
Yeah, that's the domestic picture. And then globally, these independent tariff actions are definitely reshaping trade, causing friction, like with BRICS,
Right, stirring condemnation.
and creating just widespread uncertainty. Even for places like India that might potentially benefit down the line, every decision becomes really complex.
Which leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it? Given these huge shifts in trade and investment, how might the whole idea of international economic alliances change in the next few years?
Exactly. What new power dynamics are starting to emerge that maybe weren't there before? Something
Yeah.
to keep watching.